Thanks for watching Wednesday Debate Live with Taghreed Hussein here on Nile TV International. Tonight we'll be talking about developing education in the New Republic as a top priority. As you know that the New Republic has made significant progress in a number of files. Among them, definitely in the recent years, is the education file. The President always follows up on the development of the educational system in the country and its fundamental aspects in Egypt, stressing the need to focus on developing the human character, because definitely the human character is the treasure, the human identity. The framework of the state's strategic and orientation towards supporting investment in the human being and in education, we find the government sparing no effort to contribute to building the Egyptian character through this important file. Recently, of course, as we all know, there has been the revolution through AI, artificial intelligence. The New Republic is paying AI considerable attention today and considering the integration of AI in the different aspects. And of course, the higher education file is among those aspects. Tonight we'll be talking about prioritizing higher education and education as a fundamental dimension in Talking Egypt's Vision 2030, and also talking about the potential to transform learning and the learning process and the way the students actually react, the way the students learn, and the way also educators teach. We have all the honor and pleasure of having with us Professor Dr. Mohamed Naguib Abu Zaid, professor at the AUC, to talk to us about this important and fruitful topic. Thank you so much, Doctor, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And together we'll be talking about this continuous efforts to develop education with applying the modern technology. Recently we had a report on how 15 Egyptian universities on 2023 QS World University rankings. This is a very important dimension. Let us have a look at the report and we'll be back.
15 Egyptian universities were placed on the 2023 Quacquarelli-Simons World University Rankings, which included almost 1,500 education institutions from around the world. The Quacquarelli-Simons World University Rankings are not just iconic institutions, but take these top spots. This year's highest rankings include universities from diverse locations across Africa, Europe, Asia, and North America. The rankings are the fast and easy way to compare institutions on a host of different criteria, from academic reputation to the number of international students enrolled. The Minister of Higher Education and Scientific Research in Egypt announced that 15 Egyptian universities had joined the Quacquarelli-Simons World Classification for the year 2024. It depends also on certain criteria to determine the ranking of the best 1,500 universities in the world, including the ratio of professors of students, academic research, the ratio of international professors, and the sustainability eco-efficiency. The 15 Egyptian universities include Cairo University, Ain Shams University, Alexandria University, Asyut University, and others. According to a statement by the Minister of Higher Education, the Egyptian universities' progress in the Quacquarelli-Simons Rankings 2024 resulted from measures such as training on international academic publishing. The Ministry of Higher Education emphasized that the Egyptian universities' efforts to motivate researchers in different fields to publish their studies in the renowned international journals.
Professor, what's the QS World Rankings in the first place for our viewers to engage in the discussion? And what are those indicators? Why are those indicators important?
You put part of the answer in this nice question by talking about indicators. The QS ranking is one of several types of rankings, including Shanghai ranking, the US ranking, and among others. They put indicators for each and every university across the globe, particularly those who would apply and qualify for it. So when we heard now in the report 1,500 universities, the world has much more universities and institutions than that. And each one has certain points and criteria to be measured with. For example, how many international faculty you have, what is the ratio of international students in the body of the student body you have, publications per faculty, how well and renowned the quality of the publications and the research being conducted, and so on. And with that, there are points, and these points are being summed up, and in that sense, there is some kind of ranking for that. I have to mention that you have to qualify for that, but you have also to provide the data for it. One of the reasons the Egyptian universities appear better this year than previous years in this ranking is that this data were not accessible or were not provided. So providing the data make you under the microscope, make you visible to the world, and that's the whole idea of knowledge and academia, and therefore the ranking will advance.
Yes, it's very important to know more about this information, knowing more about the indicators, not only Cairo University that improved the rank, but we have also other universities like Ain Shams University, Alexandria University. So this gives definitely also a great reflection about the role that is played by public universities here in Egypt, and
yes,
how far they are seen in world rankings.
I like to commend that, and actually Egypt has, and I'm not going to talk about one particular university here and there, not to be biased. I originally graduated from Cairo University. I am American University in Cairo, two different types and style of universities. Both are highly ranked in the QS, but other good, great universities like Alexandria and Shams Asyut, they appear in the ranking, they are well up in the ranking, and they are advancing. Let me just say something about this advancement in ranking. It's also put you on the path for improvement, and under the eyes of the public, whether within Egypt or outside, that this university is in the top, let's say, tier, top 100, top 50, and so on. Of course, that's our aspiration for all universities, not just one. And in that sense, there is a vehicle for improvement. And when you advance one step, it's not only because you've done better, and others are trying to do better as well. So it's not just one place, you've gone one place among others who are racing with you. And that's the sense of competitiveness upon which improvement of us takes place on every front. One important element, and you alluded to that into your nice introduction, of course, technology, AI, and so on, but also the ratio between teaching and research faculty and the students. There is some kind of equilibrium there. There must be a good ratio to make sure that there is good deliverables of that. Sustainability, how eco-friendly, it was very nicely mentioned in the report. So these campuses, are they act as beacon of knowledge with providing the good example, or they are just learning spaces for providing knowledge that could be reached otherwise? And that's where the good news came in that kind of ranking.
Yes, very important also to ask the question, what does it take? You've mentioned competitiveness, because competitiveness here is key if we are going to see how the different universities have performed, and they have leaped and moved steps forward in the ranking. But what does it take? What are the criteria upon which those rankings are given?
There are different rankings. Different ones have different criteria. But let me tell you at the basic ones in there. For example, one of the things that made Cairo University higher in ranking than many other universities, the number of Nobel laureates who have studied in this university. Same thing with Alexandria University that had the late Dr. Ahmed Zaid, who graduated from there. So there are certain criteria about the quality of education, how much of the research that is being produced is cited, is being recognized. So we talk about research quality, the caliber of the professors and the instructors you have, the impact. You mentioned that again in your nice report about the reputation, the impact, where your graduates are at the end, what kind of reputation By the way, they ask employers, they make surveys and ask employers, those graduates from, let's say, University X or University Y, how are they performing? They may say, they're performing well, or they may say, they are performing better than other universities. And that's why some graduates of some universities, it's easier for them to get jobs.
Yeah.
Because they build on that reputation and they capitalize on it. And that's pass the way, or opens the path for their easy employment in the market.
Yes.
And that's another important criteria.
Yes, this is another also very attractive dimension concerning what attracts the labor market. Another dimension is the environmental impact. That is considered to be an important dimension if we're talking sustainability and the 2030 vision.
How I love the question, and I can talk about it for hours. About sustainability and environmental impact, again, it's, let's say, multifaceted issue. In the sense, this campus you have, how green it is, and I don't mean only in color. A simple example, but important one. Attitude, recycling. Do people consume within the campus itself? Is there a good behavior in terms of consumption of electricity and water and other aspects there? I give you a very simple example. Many universities have gained some points in this kind of ranking by simply having a vehicle for providing notes and books more in soft copies than in hard copies, and if hard copies in the use existing one rather than printing new ones. This may sound very trivial. Would that improve? Yes, it does improve that. And environmental in the global sense, we'll talk about CO2 emission, carbon footprint. Many universities, and I don't want only to talk about my university, although I proudly can speak about that, but the carbon footprint, and have a map for that, for the buildings and so on. The important thing is not only to exercise it, but you are, at the end of the day, you are an education institution. You are passing this knowledge and this attitude to your students, who will carry it to the workplace and to their families and to the community.
Yes, more than one dimension, as Professor Abu Zaid has mentioned, linking sustainability with the environmental dimension. Cairo University climbed in the QS World University Rankings 2024, and now ranking in the top 25% of the global educational institutions. Well, this is definitely telling a lot about the reputation of Egyptian public universities. We have also a link between higher education and achieving sustainability. This is a very important file, Professor, and you've been a member of the Quality and Accreditation Committee before. And I guess that this has featured high.
This featured high, and it was actually one of the aspects about the sustainability, and sustainability not only from the angle of environmental, but the sustainability of all these efforts and all these academic inputs being put into the institution as a whole. I would like to add an important angle here to what you're talking about in terms of public universities. One of the great achievements that happened on a personal, and I think any Egyptian would share me this, personal level, as well as being proudly so an Egyptian citizen, over the past 6-7 years, there has been 34 new universities emerging in Egypt.
Yes.
And the 34 new universities with different specializations, we can talk about that later on if you wish, but these universities, they are not yet, they just started, they cannot be in this kind of hierarchy right away, but they see the path. It's like you have an older brother or older sister, and you see them doing or achieving success, so you follow the path. And these universities, whether private or nationalized or on the way to be semi-private or so on, whatever the model is, they are picking up the baton like that, like in the athletics we use this expression, and they are advancing their mission in that sense. These universities have developed a mission different than the big universities to serve their community. And when it comes the time, when they apply for accreditation, when they appear in this ranking, they are going to be evaluated in light of this mission that they have established for themselves.
Yes, they will, and hopefully this significant progress is reflecting positively on the country's global vision and global dimension. How do you see this, Dr. Abu Zaid, the fact that such smart universities that have been added, that you were talking about, have contributed a lot in marketing Egypt globally? The smart universities in the different smart cities around Egypt.
In your earlier question, you mentioned Egypt 2030.
Yeah.
And 2030, we close our eyes and open them, inshallah, it's 2030. It's not that far away. We're talking about 7 years. So in our vision as a country, we're talking about sustainability, economic, green economy. We're talking about educational and the development of the Egyptian citizen at its best to be one of the most competitive calibers. We're talking about not only Egypt, we're talking about the globe, and there are no boundaries in this world. So the connectivity between both is very clear. And the labor market, as a matter of fact, is requiring graduates who are able, who are knowledgeable, but who are able to modify and adapt to a fast changing economic situation and parameters as we see. If I were to give two vivid examples over the last 4 or 5 years, we have had, heaven forbid, we don't want to see it again, the COVID. We are seeing now some wars somewhere in the world. We have seen some kind of economic crises here and there that impacts the whole world. By the way, those who go back in history 20, 30 years ago, usually these kind of local conflicts would not impact the entire world as they do today because of the high connectivity, as I mentioned, between the world economy and so on. So it is one of the clear dimensions. It's being instilled in Egypt vision, and I am happy to say that from where I am, I could see that that's being witnessed. We are being asked as universities, as faculty, to always provide what we have achieved, how can we feed into that kind of vision, and if not, what prevented us, so as if there are obstacles, this has to be worked out and so on. And that's the whole idea of assessment and following up on any plan that's being put. Yes,
more concerning the availability of an education that is going to provide us with a creative youth in the labor market. We're talking also about an education that is affordable. This is also in question. Talking about flexibility in innovation practices inside our universities today. How would this all pay off in the future, in your opinion?
Okay, I'll try to take them one by one because it's...
and we're always talking about affordability.
Yes, yes. I will start with this.
Very important now.
If we are having this discussion in the US, and I attend so many conferences there, people will talk about, they don't use necessarily the word affordability, but use the word accessibility, which is a nicer way of talking about affordability. How can we access, because, and again, we're talking about ranking. Does your university, or do these universities are sensitive to the needs of the society? Do we offer enough scholarships? And let's not, because we as a country and our president pays great attention to that. People with special needs, do this appear in your plans, in your campus, in your physical accessibility over there? So affordability and being able to provide scholarships for those who excel is definitely one of the criteria. Another beautiful point you mentioned, creativity and in innovation.
Yeah.
One of the leading universities in the world, in the US, their motto is, our graduates do not find jobs, our graduates make jobs.
Create jobs.
And they create it for them and for others. So that's the whole sense of, and that's, by the way, is the thing, and I think you are very well aware of that, and the viewers are aware of that. That's the whole point of that motivates the economy to be flexible and adaptable, because that's the way to survive. Heavyweight economies that rely on fixed parameters, do not and cannot withstand competition from different countries, for example, from China and many other countries that could compete with them regardless of magnitude and so on. So affordability, accessibility, the quality of education and creativity. And all of that, rightly so you mentioned, are key cornerstones in the ranking criteria for any university.
Yes, very important, because we have a revolution concerning AI, how it had changed the face of life in the whole world. We have robots today reading the news in our profession, but this doesn't mean that the anchor flesh and blood is going to disappear. Hopefully not. Definitely also in the field of architectural engineering and construction, AI is going to change the face of the profession as well. From the eyes of an expert in the field, how is the future? How is it going to transform lives of engineers around the world?
This is a difficult question, and I will say too difficult because I think the whole world is busy trying to answer this question. Some people, and I have to be honest, that are a bit scared about AI and what it can do. Not only technically speaking, but socially, and the kind of the social equilibrium of the society by who replaces who and what can do what. And just imagine if you discover at the end of this discussion that you were not talking to me and you were talking to a robot or to somebody who just been an AI, you know, kind of operated or manipulated and so on. It's a scary thought. But let's also, my generation have witnessed, by the way, when I went to Thanawiya Amma exam, we were not allowed at that time to take even calculators. We had to calculate with our own hands. And then we've seen the computers. While I was in the university, computers came up, and some, I heard with my own ears, some great, mighty professors who were saying, computers will not really be, you have always to, and these revolutions really overrode anything and continue. I think AI will do the same. Yes, the magnitude is big, and it's not happening in one place, but it's happening everywhere, all the sectors. Comes the very crucial and pivotal question: how will that be regulated? How will that be monitored? How will that be globally controlled? Otherwise, it will be more into the negative side than the positive side. But definitely, it will serve the economy and the human being in a good way. Last, on that point, I want to give a credit, great credit actually, to our leadership, because, and I remember vividly, I had this conversation with you several years ago, that among the new specializations that were instilled in most of the new universities, that was 5-6 years ago, before ChatGPT and this program came up even, was to have an AI specialization there. And that's what we call it leadership vision. You see where the world is going or might be going, and you have to be ahead. Keeping pace, yeah. Keeping pace, and as a matter of fact, being competitive ahead.
Yes, competitive ahead in more than one specialty. Professor Abu Zaid is competitive ahead, lecturing around the world and in more than one specialty, reading into his research more concerning AI changing the face of construction, engineering, and analysis of the material. We have more also research concerning the evaluation of the structures, and also lecturing in urban development and human resources vision and vocational training. So I guess that AI is going to change also the face of lecturing those specialities worldwide.
Yes, and I will even replace the word lecturing by feeding the knowledge. An AI tool, good tool, will replace or can replace much of the means of our delivery into more effective and efficient means. And again, while the amount of knowledge that exists today is massive, AI will be able to filter it for you. I don't want to take more time, but if you and I now want to write, and I think you know that very well, knowing you that you know it very well, if we want to write a report now about, let's say, poverty alleviation in Africa, for example, if we have one of these programs, he will give us a good start report. I will not say a perfect report, that will provide us with key elements of that report that you and I can work on and perfect. But if we have this discussion 2-3 years in the future, maybe it will need far less modifications, because these programs have the ability to modify themselves and adapt themselves to the needs of human beings.
Yes, definitely changing the way of lives, changing and transforming lives, changing the way the educators teach, and also the reception of the students themselves, how students learn today. Short break and we'll be back. I guess, Professor, dealing with students and engaging them and making sure that they are dealing with technology effectively is considered a very important dimension today for the coaches, for the teachers.
Definitely, and if you're taking that from the angle of AI, AI is being used by many students, although I don't think it's officially has been allowed yet into the classrooms within Egypt, but some people have access to it. By the way, it always starts like that. Something is limited in one part in the world or not all over the world, and then it widespreads all over the world. I have to say that in some countries in the world, that's a bit of a side note, during the exams, the national exams, they switch off the internet completely to minimize or to prevent any kind of cheating and so on. So all I'm just saying is that technology at the end overrides and wins and prevails. And you're talking about students, I'm talking about the public, I'm talking about continuing education, I'm talking about the professors themselves. On my own humble capacity, I think in the future, and I mean by that the soon future, AI has to be a part of what I'm doing. And in several meetings, me and many of my colleagues, we've talked about that. How can we reshape what we're doing from the angle of AI? How can we make sure that this is not something that comes to us, but something that we go to, that we implement in our classrooms, in our research? And if we don't do that, then we're losing the competition against others who use it in a good and effective way.
Yes. Dr. Abu Zaid, you've mentioned a very important dimension, as you wisely put it, also integrating the differently abled and preparing them also for this sense of automated technology-enhanced environment, and engaging them in education this way. How do you see that in the future? And I guess that we are doing well in that respect.
Actually, we are doing much better than some, not all, of the developed countries. We are doing better than several developed countries that have used. And why? Because there is that strong will all the way in Egypt. And when we talk about, if your question talking about special needs or different needs and so on, differently able people, I also want to talk about people always think of those who have less capabilities than others or different capabilities than others, but I talk also about those who are brilliant or genius or excelling. How would you deal with them? If you have in a classroom one or two people who can be future Nobel laureate,
geniuses,
your system has to be capable of dealing with them, of harvesting on their knowledge, on taking them and challenging them perhaps on a different and higher level. It's like you're playing against the computer in chess. If you're a beginner, the computer will play with you as a beginner. If you elevate the level, it will elevate the level. If you're in the highest level, so I don't want that only to be limiting to the very important part. And again, and I say this from my heart, I am often very touched when I see the president does not miss a single major opportunity without integrating them. Our friends, our family, the sons and daughters who are having different needs to the community, because that's the message to the community. If we go today to a university to try to accredit it, and I was just in a visit doing that in April in one of major universities in New York. I was asked by the U.S. to evaluate a university in the U.S., in New York State, without mentioning names. One of the important criteria, let's start from the beginning and see if somebody with a wheelchair or with some vision impairment or something like that, how can he or she walk across campus? So that's one of the simple tests to see how this campus is sensitive to that. And yes, I have seen it, and I have seen it not only in my university, I'm seeing it increasingly elsewhere. My hope and my wish is to see it in the streets of Egypt, in the traffic lights, and that's a bit of a higher challenge, but I think the start is always from education.
Yes, the start is from education, and the key is definitely the youth, our treasure. And I guess that this is very important, how to let those ideas materialize on solid grounds. How to make the educational environment quite enticing for the youth and bring out the best out of them. And this is actually a very important role to be played by the coaches.
Yes, and definitely the important role to play by ourselves, teachers, instructors, by the community as a whole. And for the favor of this situation and this kind of let's say, competitive status, technology here can help a lot. In the sense, we don't need to go physically, we can do it. So somebody who has difficulty in moving or less competitive in moving fast, physically speaking, he or she can make up for that by doing several multitasking. Today, when you have a computer program, and I use a very simple example just to simplify this whole issue, when you have different windows open at the same time, it's like you're having your brain multitasking different aspects or different missions at the same time. And that's the essence of efficiency in the modern society. We're doing that, and we're educating ourselves and our students to do that. I think we are fortunate in Egypt that we picked up early on this, and that's what makes our institutions, inshallah, becoming more attractive to international students.
Yes, in education, the coaches are sometimes looking for assistants, like co-teachers, but how about the voice assistants? Have they managed to actually to help in the teaching environment so far? What are the benefits of the voice assistants in your opinion?
I have not, I have to be honest, I have not experienced myself. I have read about it, and some of these new, I don't want to call it experiment, but directions, I like to experiment on them cautiously. It's not a secret, but these days, August, we have no regular class at the university. Some of these new trends, I'm trying to see how can they be implemented. And of course, we have to benefit from what others have done and are doing. And I'm one of the people who are waiting for some kind of regulating this phenomena, this criteria, this direction, so as we don't go very far on the expense of the essentials and the fundamentals of our education.
Yes, and voice assistance and the new applications, and also the issue of academic integrity.
Yes, yes.
Linking those applications with this umbrella, the important umbrella.
True, true. By the way, the voice assistance in its simplest form, and if that's what you meant in your question, for someone who's using the GPS, navigating here and there, turn right, turn left, do this.
Providing directions.
It's a simple way of voice assist. Imagine that if you do that on a sophisticated way, and I mean by sophisticated, in a positively sophisticated way that serves the purpose of the lecture, of the research, to provide warning and so on. And especially if this voice speaks your language, knows that that's where the AI comes in. Yeah. These voices, they would use even the terms that you are familiar with, even if they are funny terms or slogan terms, but will serve that. With academic integrity, and just to have to be very quick here, I don't want to take too much time, but with academic integrity, putting AI there makes our task even more challenging.
Yes.
Because you can have different sources of information, and these AI mechanisms or techniques or tools, sometimes they are smart enough not to be traceable. So somebody would write
the situation much more difficult.
Yes, but again, I'm optimistic on the fact that all of these techniques, they have also their counter techniques, and that's why the presence of the human, that's why we have two human beings having oral exam, an interview. Because if you are away a little, if assuming that this interview between two real human beings, you will have this kind of interaction. You would be able to gauge and evaluate the capabilities of the individual you're talking with, not just what he or she has produced.
Yes. Real professors versus robotics and the way how they are going to teach. The flesh and blood, would the flesh and blood emerge a winner against the machine?
I will
Or they will work in partnership?
Of course. If I could read the future, that would be great. But I want to tell you something. We have experienced that partially. And of course, it's a different question than what you're asking here. During the COVID time, we have worked with our students, and that was online. We have not seen them unless we ask them to open the camera. And by the way, when you open the camera and you see 20, 30, 40, or 50, or whatever faces here, it's very difficult for the human eye to speak and to concentrate and to deliver some talk while looking at all these faces. It's unlike having 50 people in front of you. That's not my words. That's scientists and doctors, physicians say so. So in a way, we experience that. And I just want to share with you and the viewers, after 2 years or more or less, when we returned back to the university, I was happy to see my students again, but again, I was not very pleased when I met someone, oh, I liked very much your lecture. And for the first time in my career, but I don't remember you. Oh, I was with you online. Oh, yes. Okay, so then the person mentioned the name. So here, we experienced before taking away the human element. And it's not very healthy. So I like to catch your words, flesh and blood. No, the emotions, the abilities, the sensitivity for the needs. When you see he or she is not in good mood or not up to his level, like other lecture or other exams or other research work, I don't want only to limit it to research work. This is an important element that AI can never replace, and you know, maybe in the foreseen future, but maybe after that, it will be smarter than that and we'll be able to do it.
Yes. Well, today we have lots of applications. We see lots of applications, not only voice assistance, but also what we call gamification, or like games. How can we engage games in the educational process? Is it healthy? How about the reciprocity of the students receiving information through this system? Are you with? What are the pros and cons?
I'm definitely with, and of course you have, I'm sure you know that each discipline has its own, let's say, style and criteria. And even without the games, as you mentioned them, there are the round table discussion. We have in my university, for example, classrooms that are arranged totally in a different place. In many countries, I've seen it years ago in Germany and the US and so on. So I'm talking about taking the education not from the classic way. By the way, years ago, would somebody sit next to a post, like in a mosque or a church, and people around them? Or nowadays, classrooms, and to take them into some kind of game, some kind of engagement, and working groups. So you talk about games and fruitful games. I talk also about working group. One of the weaknesses that I would like always to improve in our society is our ability to work better together as teams. Egypt won medals in the Olympics, never won in a collective game, all single games. That should ring a bell. So I'm not criticizing.
Yeah, we have to learn to work as in teams.
Yes, and we need to do that while learning something together. We work in teams good, but we want to work better. We want to be more competitive in this regard.
Yes, definitely. Talking AI transformation of the future, Egypt's Vision 2030, how do you see the future of education, Professor Naguib? And I guess it's going to be also in the short terms that we are going to witness a real transformation.
I like to share with you a quote from an American genius guy. He said, "The future is already here. It's just at different distances from different people." the future is here. You see it and you catch it. Somebody else thinks it's far away, and so on. Well, some of my answers may be strange to some of the viewers, but the one thing that I'm positive that it will happen, طبعا, as much as I can be positive of anything, I think universities with the kind of structure they exist today, in 20, 30 years maximum, this kind of classic structure of universities will change. And we may not require our students to come this whole space of the university. Maybe we need only a quarter of it in university, I'm talking about in general, and it will be some form of interaction and some kind of transfer of information and so on. And like somebody is preparing a nice, good sandwich with different slices, and you put this and I put something different, I think the educational programs will deform into some kind of sandwich-like or a module-like. Module is the right word, of course. I was just trying to simplify it. Module-like pattern rather than standard kind of courses and standard kind of requirement. What makes that the case is the needs of the market and the capabilities of the individual. So you put the needs with the of the market with the capabilities of the person, and what's in between is the deliverables of the educational program. And I think that will happen very soon.
We are definitely prepared for the future, and we talk the future, which is already here, as Professor Abu Zaid said. Thank you so much, Professor Dr. Mohamed Naguib Abu Zaid, Professor at AUC, for all the valuable information tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
And I thank you, dear viewers, for joining us. That was the Daily Debate Live Wednesdays with Zaid Hussein. Tomorrow, another team. Until then.